We'll start our next seminar. This is Ask the Expert on Butterflies. Mark Schenk is our speaker, and he is from the Newport Butterfly Farm in Middletown, Rhode Island.
Thank you. For those of you who don't know me, I used to be a high school teacher until I got smart. I don't teach public school anymore. I do butterflies. I've been doing butterflies for the last 4 years. Is that working now? Okay. I've been doing butterflies for the last 4 years. For the last 20 years, I've operated the third oldest continuously operated butterfly exhibit in Newport, Rhode Island. Part of what I'm going to be talking about today is maybe helping you increase some of your business, but my long-term goal is to make sure that my grandchildren and great-grandchildren are going to be able to see butterflies flying free. As many of you know, I've talked about some of you before, butterflies, like a lot of creatures, are disappearing at an astounding rate. There used to be a time when I did butterflies and my friends who watched birds thought I was a little crazy and they laughed at me until they found out that their precious little sweetie birds are disappearing too. Why were the birds disappearing? There were no butterfly caterpillars to feed their babies. No baby birds, no adult birds to watch. Butterflies and a lot of creatures are disappearing not only nationwide, but worldwide at a very alarming rate. Part of it has to do with change in global climates. The biggest thing which we can help address is disappearing of habitat. Does anyone in here know what monarch butterflies lay their eggs on? Yes?
Milkweed.
Correct. On milkweed. If you offer monarch butterflies hundreds of different plants, but no milkweed, they will not lay eggs. If you take a monarch butterfly caterpillar off the milkweed and offer it anything else, it'll starve to death. I've often shocked people when I've said, if you could push a magic button and have every milkweed plant on the planet disappear, within 6 weeks, every monarch butterfly on the planet would be extinct. It's that critical. And it's not only monarch butterflies, it's every species of butterfly that you see flying. Very good example. At the very top of this mount are a series of butterflies called fritillaries. Beautiful little gold and brown creatures. They're found in most of the 48 contiguous states. They only lay their eggs on violets. If you want to have fritillaries come in your yard, butterfly bush is fine. But if you want them to stay there and reproduce, you have to plant large amounts of violets. If anyone know what stinging nettle is, I think you have it down here. Most people don't realize several very important things about stinging nettles. One, if you cut it and cook it, it tastes like spinach. It's safe to eat and it's rich in iron. But there are a number of gorgeous butterflies throughout the entire United States that only lay their eggs on stinging nettles. If you plant nettles, and I recommend planting them in a pot in your garden, not only have the adults come in, they'll also lay eggs and breed. Right here in Missouri, beautiful state, there's a rare little butterfly called Joanne's swallowtail. It's found nowhere else on the planet, just here in Missouri. And I'll show you something similar. Swallowtail butterfly right here in the middle. If you can imagine it quite a bit darker, you would see a picture of Joanne's swallowtail. It's so rare, I've seen mounted specimens, I've never seen live ones. Why is it found only here in Missouri? Because it only lays its eggs on an obscure parsnip plant. So if you live in Missouri, nowhere else, you want to get this butterfly in your yard, you have to locate the rare plant, dig it up, or get seeds, propagate it to your yard, and the swallowtail will come in and lay eggs on it. Nowadays, butterfly gardens are a big thing. Plant butterfly bush, buddleia, and a number of different plants, lantanas, zinnias. Those are fine. But I'm pushing for people nowadays to plant what I call butterfly sanctuaries. They not only have nectar sources in there, but they have the special plants according to what region of the country they live in, or disappearing species in your area to come in and lay eggs on. If you'd really like to increase sales in your stores, I would suggest that you get knowledgeable people to come into your store, hold seminars which are specialized to either California, Florida, Oregon, New England. Another way of getting more profits into your stores is you can set up 4-foot by 4-foot screen cage, put a butterfly feeder in it. Obviously you'll be selling butterfly feeders, and get painted lady butterflies to come in and set up colonies in there. People absolutely love butterflies. There are only 2 insects on the planet that people are not afraid of: butterflies and ladybugs. Most other insects you see fly by, people freak out. But people are just in love butterflies. Great way to make money. Another way, one of the things I do, since I'm not in the public classroom anymore, I do travel around the country giving seminars at stores and other places. I've also helped other businesses set up a live butterfly exhibit. If your store is not in a mall or attached to other buildings, you have your own dedicated building, it's fairly easy to set up a screen greenhouse, to get federal permits to fly native butterflies in there. It not only attracts people to your exhibits, but you charge admission. That's extra money. Just things to think about. And speaking with some of the people here before I started my talk today, talk has come up about butterfly feeders. There are at least 3 or 4 on the market. There's one that looks like a flat yellow pancake. I think they call it the flutterby. I'm very familiar with the gentleman who made it. He knew nothing about butterflies. He came up with the idea by taking a hummingbird feeder and spraying it yellow. Sometimes it works. What really bothers me, and I had a very in-depth conversation yesterday with a lady about butterfly foods. There is a butterfly food on the market. If you read the label, it contains calcium salts, among other things. Calcium salts are death to butterflies. The guy who developed that yellow flat pancake butterfly feeder went to a local university and read some books. He found a recipe for feeding adult sphinx moths. Adult sphinx moths do need calcium in their diets. Butterflies get very unhealthy with calcium salts, and that food doesn't contain anything to attract it. Butterfly food that Old Crest distributes has sodium salts in it. Sodium salts are absolutely vital for butterflies, especially male butterflies, to develop their reproductive packages. The food that he sells also contains flower extracts, which help attract butterflies into your yard. I've also had several interesting conversations this morning about hummingbird foods, where if they don't have the correct formula or they're too strong, you could potentially harm hummingbirds. Same thing happens with butterflies. So if you're going to sell these products, please be very careful about what the ingredients are in the foods that you sell or you might use for an exhibit in your store. Another problem I've run into a lot of bird stores sell butterfly books, which usually are pretty good sellers. The only problem is a lot of butterfly books have what I call flaws in logic. We mentioned earlier that monarch butterflies only lay eggs on what plants? Milkweeds, right. Well, this guy, let's call him John Doe, decides, I'm going to get rich, I'm going to write a book on butterflies. And he makes a mistake in his book, and he says that monarch butterflies lay eggs on parsley. Okay, the book gets published. It might not be a resounding success, but nonetheless it's published. Another guy comes along and says, I'm going to get rich too, I'm going to write a great book on butterflies. He plagiarizes material from the first book, and the error that monarch butterflies lay eggs on parsley is put in his book. So the error is proliferated all over the place. I see this all the time. Let's say you live in Kentucky and you want to sell butterfly books. If you get a butterfly book written by a guy in California, the book is not going to help folks in Kentucky. The same way it's not going to help folks in Florida attract butterflies to their yards. Why? Because the species of butterflies found in California is completely different from the list of species of butterflies found in Kentucky. Completely different from the list of butterfly species found in Florida. There are a number of handbooks out now which are written for specific states. Usually those have the best information. But again, if you have questions, I'm always available to answer your questions by email. As I mentioned when I came in, half hour is nowhere close enough to cover the topic. I was telling someone I could probably do seminars for 6 weeks straight and not cover everything. After my talk, I have a brief question and answer, but I'm at a table out there. If you come by, I'll be very happy to give you my contact information. Okay?
Where's your table?
If you go out the door, you make a right turn, I'm about 50 feet on the left. The table has this magazine on it. This is the local magazine, and they did a feature story on my business, the Butterfly Zoo. Even though the story is 2 years old, it's still generating dozens and dozens of people coming out to visit our exhibit every week during the summertime. Okay, we still have some time left. Do we have any questions?
What makes that feeder a good feeder?
Okay. What's that buzzing sound? I don't speak that language, sorry.
Do you have a cell phone?
It's turned off.
You still get your cell phone.
Thank you. That's why I hate technology. Okay, as I mentioned, the first butterfly feeder that ever came on the market was from New England, Newport, Rhode Island. There was a gentleman who lived like 25 miles from where I live, in Kingston, Rhode Island, at the University of Rhode Island, and I at least give him credit for coming up with the idea of a butterfly feeder. He took a hummingbird feeder, spray painted it yellow, and sold it as a butterfly feeder. It didn't work for a couple reasons. One, it had the wrong color yellow on it. And two, it didn't have red on it. Most, not all, most butterflies are attracted by the color red. And the way this is set up more of the red that's used in this is a shade of red that's very attractive to butterflies. Also, if you notice, if you have a bird's eye view of it like this, it looks more like the outline of a flower. The other butterfly feeder doesn't. The other butterfly feeder is too deep. A lot of times the liquid evaporates and the butterfly's tongue, proboscis, is not long enough to go all the way to the bottom. This one, if you look, has red wicks on it. The red wicks actually suck nectar up from the reservoir underneath, and again the wicks are red, giving the impression of a flower, and it brings the nectar up. The monarch butterfly has a proboscis, a drinking straw that's depending on the size of the monarch, anywhere from an inch and a quarter to an inch and a half. Their proboscis can go down into that flat yellow feeder enough. But most butterflies have a very short proboscis. Their proboscis can't get down in there. That's why they drink from the nectar up there. It's a very good question. The little prongs, that is for fruit. I've been speaking a lot with Mel lately, and it seems there's been a big brouhaha about putting fruit on feeders. In many parts of the country in the warm months, fruit put on a feeder generally attracts flies and yellow jackets. I'm in the process, I'm working with Mel, I'm developing a butterfly feeder just for fruit. And I'll tell you about that in a second. The little prongs are for holding fruit. Again, fruit is not a big, important part of a butterfly's diet. There may be 3 or 4 major species, in other words, they're common and you can easily see them, that sometimes will feed on fruit. The mourning cloak, the red admiral, the question mark, occasionally some of the fritillaries, but they're not there in large numbers all the time. The feeder that I'm working on with Mel has a bee guard on top, and there are several different trays. One that will have a tray for sand for fresh water. Believe it or not, butterflies do need fresh water. Male butterflies need a solution of light salt. And there are other little trays to put different types of fruit. Obviously, if you live in an area that's very high in, like in the middle of July, in my area, very high in yellow jackets and flies, you don't feed fruit. You're not going to miss your butterflies. Again, if you want to get butterflies in your yard, this is what you teach your customers. Okay? Plants. Plants are their primary food. Nectar sources are fine. You want to have large quantities of butterflies in your yard, you plant the different host plants. A good way to do it now, for a lot of bird stores that I've seen, or wildlife stores, you don't have the facilities to sell plants, but you can sell seeds. If you're not sure, again, contact me, or you can contact your local Audubon Society. There are a number of sources that will tell you which plants to plant. The only thing is, the only caveat, the warning, in some states, I've met a lot of very fine folks in the fine state of Wisconsin and Minnesota, and dairy states like that, I can't believe it. It's highly illegal to plant milkweeds on their property, simply because they're afraid the cows are going to come and munch the milkweeds and produce poisonous milk. Usually the laws specify Asclepias cuirassivica. That's the tall, showy monarch, the tall, showy milkweed everyone sees. But there are alternatives. A legal alternative in many states is Asclepias tuberosa. It's a short plant that only grows about this high. They call it butterfly weed. The flowers are bright orange. It is perennial. Great butterfly attracting plant. Monarchs will lay eggs on it. And a number of butterflies will come in to lay eggs on it. If you have a greenhouse, there are a large number of what we would call annual milkweeds. Asclepias cuirassivica. Down in Florida, Asclepias cuirassivica grows 4 or 5 feet tall, has drop-dead gorgeous yellow and red flowers on it. Monarchs love to lay eggs on it. By the way, if you live in Florida, you're lucky. You don't have one species of monarch butterfly. You have 3 different species of monarch butterfly. You have the regular monarch butterfly, Danis plexippus. You have the queen monarch and soldier monarch. And they all use Asclepias cuirassivica. So there are ways of getting around. By the way, Asclepias cuirassivica, you can buy seeds on the internet. The only thing is, if you're going to grow it, it's a slow-growing plant. You need a greenhouse. You need to start plants in January rather than later in the year. Okay, other questions? Please. Yes?
these items called a puddler, butterfly puddler, do you have any feeling about those?
A butterfly puddler.
Yeah. Put a little bit of sand or water.
I haven't heard of that one. As I said, I'm working with something on a similar line with Mel. Anyone in here familiar with the Ladybug Village? You still see them for sale. It's a little box you put in your yard. Well, I invented and patented the first one about 20 years ago. And since then, there have been dozens and dozens of knockoffs, most of which don't come close to the little innovations I put in mine. Well, biologically speaking, they're in the ladybug family. One of the things I'm working on, again, Mel has been so busy getting the show going, one of the things I'm hoping to work with him on this fall is a ladybug village that has holes in it just the right size for our native ladybugs and will exclude the Asian one. Essentially, I really don't like killing things wantonly, but with the Asian ladybugs, if they get in your house, I would have no problem with taking the vacuum cleaner and just sucking them all up, and they bite. We don't have them where I live yet. We have.
They're in southwest Iowa. They're horrible. And they're not, like you said, they're not real ladybug. They bite.
If you're a biologist,
I know they're in the ladybug family.
yeah, if you're a biologist, here is a golden opportunity. Develop a pheromone that will attract this nasty little pest, so people can trap them like Japanese beetles. The Asian lady beetle, like a lot of other things in our country now, is what's called an introduced or an exotic species. I haven't been in this beautiful state long enough, but you guys have gypsy moths in Missouri. Okay, where I live, 30 miles from where I live, the year is 1867. A crazy biologist is doing Frankenstein experiments with silkworms. Illegally brings in from England gypsy moths. Being a low-functioning moron, he sees 10 gypsy moths fly out of his lab window and says it won't make a difference. Well, gypsy moths taste terrible, birds don't eat them, and females crank out 5,000 eggs per summer.
You did well.
From 1867 to now, gypsy moths have already gone a little past the Mississippi. It's the same with Japanese beetles. They came in still alive. Japanese beetles were accidentally introduced in the 50s when some guy brought 4 pots of beautiful roses in from Japan. He didn't know there were 13 or 14 Japanese beetles in the pots. Again, taste terrible, 5,000 eggs per female. And with the Asian lady beetles, I believe they were intentionally brought in. But that was a big mistake. It's like cane toads. Cane toads were introduced into Hawaii and Australia to get rid of beetles that the cane toads don't even eat. The vine that ate the salad. So I guess the lesson there, we do have to be very careful what we import. In the summertime in my exhibit, and we get visitors from all over the world come to visit us, we point out to each and every person that most of the butterflies that we fly are foreign species. It's breaking 9 or 10 very serious federal laws to pick up even one, stick it in your pocket and let it loose outside. Simply because in New England we don't want a butterfly getting loose that will destroy New England's banana or citrus crops. Somebody caught it. My exhibit is given a little leeway by the Department of Agriculture. They allow us to bring in the really drop-dead gorgeous butterflies that lay eggs on citrus and banana trees. If If you go to Florida, California, or several other southern states, those butterflies are not allowed in exhibits down there simply because if they got loose. We have other questions. Yes, sir.
You mentioned earlier a light salt slurry for the butterflies, and I think it had to do with the tumbler that you were talking about.
I'm not familiar with the puddler, but
We have some puddlers here.
I would like to have a look after.
My question to you is, Morton makes a light salt that you can buy. Is that, when you said a light salt, is that the type of salt you're talking about to make a salt water to put out?
Okay, very good question. First of all, if you're human, you have high blood pressure, using sea salt is not going to help you with sodium chloride. You have French fries with sea salt on it, still going to send your pressure up. When I'm talking about light, I mean a very dilute salt solution. If you can find what they call saline solution for contact lenses, it's just saline, just 7/10 normal, which is a big scientific word, 7/10 normal solution of saline. No other ingredients, no preservatives, nothing to sterilize your contact lens. That works absolutely fine. Mix in sand and put in something to offer your butterflies. By the way, I'll try and clean this up as something close to that. I had this discussion yesterday. Butterflies, especially male butterflies, do like a saline solution. But since male butterflies out in the woods can't find it, when a mammal relieves himself, butterflies in many places are attracted to the residue urine on the ground simply because of the salts in it. By the way, using a vitamin pill to mix in butterfly food, no good. Yes, ma'am.
You mentioned, and I know that there are some different species of butterflies for any area. You're doing a butterfly sanctuary for a not-for-profit, the Master Gardener program that I belong to. Is there a place, when I contact you, to find out which plants for Northwest Indiana we would need to plant to attract the butterflies in our area?
Yes, you can do that. Another good source of material, there are, I was talking with my business partner yesterday, and it seems that there are a number of little pocket guides to like southern Indiana or western Kentucky by region. And these pocket guides very frequently contain very valuable information because hopefully if you read the information on it, it's written by someone who actually lives in that area. If you live in northern Indiana, the book was written by someone from Texas, I wouldn't believe the book too much.
Yeah, not going to help much.
If that doesn't help, as I said, you can contact me. I'm going to be out there most this afternoon and tomorrow, and we'll see what we can do to help you folks out. Okay, any more questions? Yes?
Your butterfly nectars that people can make themselves in terms of sugar water, like we do any other solutions?
If you mix up your own butterfly food, you can use sugar water, but always make it fairly dilute. Like with hummingbirds, if you feed hummingbirds a very strong, in other words, a concentrated sugar solution, it can harm the hummingbird. If your sugar solution is too strong for the butterfly, what you'll do is you'll dehydrate the butterfly's intestines. That's why the food that Mel sells is very good as long as you use it according to the directions on there. The only problem is if you mix up your own food, it doesn't have anything in it to attract the butterfly. The food that he sells, and I believe it's the only food on the market, contains concentrated flower oil. So what you're getting are freeze-dried flowers you mix up with water to put in your butterfly feeder. I wouldn't mix salt in with sugar water. Just the sugar. How much sugar? I'd say about 10% solution. 10% solution. I do mix that up occasionally. We have butterflies that were breeding, and when a female butterfly is laying eggs, she can lay 50 to 100 eggs